and my next guest is here. We are joined with Sabby Sabs, or Sabrina Savati. How you doing, Sabrina? You doing okay today?
I am doing great, Jamal, all things considering.
Well, I assume that you are over the moon that Democrats capitulated in what? It's been 35, 40 days of a government shutdown. Oh, let me bring you in. I'm sorry. Jesus. We are joined with Sabrina Savati. It just went straight into the story. It's been on my mind, on my mind this morning. I've given somewhat of an annoyed take on this, but Sabrina Savati, she's a Boston-based activist, leftist, and podcaster. She is member of Revolutionary Blackout Network, a Black-led multicultural network and co-op of everyday people, activists, and allies focused on empowering our communities through education, organization, and direct action. I'm realizing now when I read that I used to have a white co-host, and when this is our communities, I'm wondering if you read it the exact same way, empowering our communities. But no, I'm glad to have you. I thank you for this, for joining me. So Democrats capitulate. Democrats capitulate. Now, I had some people on the show who thought, well, obviously Republicans are going to capitulate. That's why Donald Trump is begging them to get rid of the filibuster, because he feels the pressure after the elections and everything else. But not so much. You got enough Democrats to effectively cross the line in the Senate. They got a quote unquote deal out of it. The deal they got out of it was, we'll have a vote on this that is not going to go anywhere in December. What is your take on this? Give me your thoughts.
It's the standard ratchet effect. The Democratic Party prevents anything from going further to the left. The Republican Party does too, right? So the Democratic Party kind of jumps in there to prevent any policy that's actually, honestly, we talk about left, but any policy that's going to benefit the working class. They prevent that from actually coming to be. And we have seen this over the years. And what they typically tend to do is they use what Glenn Greenwald referred to it as the rotating villain. We saw this under the Biden administration with Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, right? Like there were all these policies and legislation that was being brought forward, but either one of the two, or sometimes both of them, would prevent that from going forward. So that was Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Now you see they have these 8 Democrats who apparently, very interesting. One of them is an independent, that's Angus King, who's always been horrible in my opinion. But none of those politicians are up for re-election in 2026. None of them. Jean Shaheen is supposed to be resigning, or I don't think she's running for re-election. But either way, these are not people that can be challenged in 2026. So it was the same thing with Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. It's people that they know is not going to have their seat at risk anytime soon. So John Fetterman, who's basically a Republican
he's
at
horrible.
this point in time, like some of us tried to warn people about John Fetterman when he was running. And, we got a lot of heat for that. We tried to warn people, this guy is telling you that if it comes between Israel and, Gaza, that he's always going to be in favor of Israel. Like these were things that John Fetterman said during interviews before he even won. But a number of people just chose to ignore it. They thought he was cool because he wore a hoodie. Like just obvious things that were out there in the open that he said during interviews. So John Fetterman, who's basically a Republican, is not moving in any way, shape, or form in a way that's really going to benefit the working class. And the same with these other senators as well. So what does this have to do with Chuck Schumer? Chuck Schumer is the leader. He's the leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate. As the leader, you already know if you have the votes or not. So Chuck Schumer, even though he voted no, he already knew that he did not have the votes to beat this. And he allowed it to come to the floor for a vote anyway. Now, we've seen him push back on this thing before where Bernie Sanders wanted to come forward. He introduced a bill about stopping the U.S. involvement in Yemen, right? Stopping the slaughter in Yemen. And Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer said, nope, don't do it because you don't have the votes. They already know. So I'm hearing some people, say, the Democrats are spineless. They cave. They gave in once again. No, like this is all a part of the plan. Because the reality is they are doing what the donor class wants them to do. And what they do is they'll use like these rotating villains as an excuse to say, this is why we could not pass such and such. We couldn't do it because of them.
Yeah.
Or Chuck Schumer is now saying, well, people were going hungry, so we had to end the shutdown. Okay. But you had people go hungry for 40 days and you didn't get anything out of it for the working class people.
Right.
So all of this it's a game. And I really do feel like we're all just little chess pieces. We're chess pieces on a chessboard. And they're just moving us around in the direction that they want, that works best for them in their political career at that point in time. Now, Chuck Schumer's old enough at this point. He can retire if he wants to. He's probably not going to run for re-election because there's tremendous calls for him to resign. So he's probably not, I don't think he wants to face that type of heat this time around. He probably will have a primary challenger if he runs again. But again, he's not up for re-election in 2026 either. So it's just, what people have to understand is that we have been played and we're being played right now. And we have to stop with the rhetoric that they're spineless. They caved. They gave in. They gave up. No, they know exactly what they're doing. So I think that what's unfortunate is that it puts working class people at risk. They are willing to play around with your lives. They're willing to play around with your food. People who have food insecurities, they're willing to play around with your life in this game of politics. And in the end, guess who wins? The donor class wins. And in this particular situation, Donald Trump wins. It's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. I guess I always assumed they just didn't care one way or the other. And because they didn't care, there was no, it's like if your kid is under a car, you lift the car to get the kid, right? Regardless of the weight of the car. There's no energy into it. It's a purely political process. Oh, people are angry because we're not fighting. So, okay, let's shut the government down and put on this show of fighting, etc. But then at the point where you capitulate, it's like, what's the point in shutting it down, right? No, I understand where you're coming from. It comes across as if it's not real. It's theatrical in the way that it effectively operates, which I can't say you're wrong. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they told Chuck Schumer, at least according to Axios, that look, by November, we're going to stop this. Chuck Schumer still pushed them to go through and say, hey, we're still going to do this. And if you remember, Chuck Schumer has done this before, where they shut the government down for a few days and then capitulated and went back to business as usual. I guess the thing is, like, what's the point? I guess for me, there was an inherent need to give, on some level, a defense of Obamacare, because that was the main and only achievement, quote unquote. And I have feelings about even calling that an achievement, even though it's an achievement. People got healthcare, but the expense and everything else associated with it, it's like this fight over something that is already too expensive, that is already overpriced, using insurance companies that are not necessary for the process. And yet people are still stuck fighting tooth and nail to defend this thing. It feels so horrible, like in the way that it operates. It feels like people are already under a certain amount of assault and abuse and having to be forced into this position of clinging to this kind of life preserver that stings them as they cling to the life preserver, as opposed to saying, we need a completely different system in the way that our healthcare operates. The former question, or the latter question, never comes up. The previous question is the thing that always comes up, in which case you have Democrats fighting tooth and nail and putting a huge amount of attention on the public's, let's say, defense of this thing. I'm curious on your thing in regards to, give me your point in the entirety of the shutdown in and of itself. Was it a worthy objective to have this fight? Or how do you see it? I mean, is it, no, Obamacare needs to fail, we need to come up with something else? Or no, there needs to be a pain point that needs to be pressed for the public to get more engaged? Where do you fall on this? Because to me, this is very complicated.
I think I would change the framing, because to me,
Please.
it's not about a government shutdown. It's about us having universal health care.
Yes.
And that's really what the push should be, right? Like if we had universal health care, we wouldn't have this problem. And I know people on Obamacare, I know people without health insurance. And I got to tell you, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I've lived in countries where everybody has health care and they just keep kicking this can down the road instead of solving the problem. And the big problem is that everyone doesn't have health care in this country. And the health insurance companies, they make a lot of money. It's all about profit. Now,
Yes.
Obamacare was just basically a band-aid on the wound. Obamacare is expensive. It's more expensive than they said it was going to be. I remember when it was introduced. And so that's just a band-aid. So they're arguing about the wrong thing. When
Agreed.
they say, let's figure out what to do about these ACA subsidies, that shouldn't be the argument. The argument should be giving everybody health care in this country. So they're never where they really should be. They're not trying to heal the wound. They just want to put a band-aid on it and kick the can down the road. And then we end up with this problem again later on. They're
Yeah.
just delaying the inevitable, which is that the health insurance industry in this country makes a lot of money off of people being sick. The insurance companies, they contact certain doctors asking them to sell certain medications to their patients. This goes
Yes.
all the way back. If you look into the Sackler family, they've been doing this for years. So this is all a profit. And I guess if we want to look even bigger, what it really all comes down to is that as long as we have a capitalist system, these things are going to be an issue because there's profit to be made.
Hmm.
Now, for me, a lot of people say, well, what are they supposed to do? What happens to those health insurance companies? That's not our concern.
I don't care. Yeah.
They don't sit back and say what happens to us.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if everybody realizes, but you know how much it costs to go to the doctor if you don't have health insurance just for the visit alone? That doesn't not including labs. How much it costs to have a baby at a hospital in this country,
By the way,
even
how much it
after
costs just to
insurance
have
pays?
healthcare? I mean, just to have healthcare. Like I remember, at companies, one of my other jobs, I think that we were paying like $300 a month for healthcare. And that's
Yeah,
just the basic healthcare. That's not deductibles, whereas like where you have to spend $500 before we even provide services. Like that's
right.
outrageous. I mean,
Right. But and then the other thing is the health insurance premiums increase every year.
yes,
Does everybody's pay
months.
increase to adjust for that every year? No. I mean,
No,
it's just it's absolutely ridiculous, but it's a predatory, profitable system. And the politicians, they're complicit. I mean, if they're taking Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, a lot of them, they take money from those health insurance companies. So they're not really trying to push and fight for people. Now, what the Democratic Party is going to say is this is all Donald Trump's fault. Yeah, you can blame Donald Trump, but at the end of the day, they're still not looking at the bigger picture, which is that if we had universal health care, this would not be a problem. Now, I seem to
yes,
remember there was a push for that. There was a call that went out to politicians in Congress to force the vote for Medicare for all. And the squad decided not to do that. From what I understand, there was some conversations behind the scenes between them and Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi apparently made some type of, I guess, offers to them for their district. Cori Bush said that she was promised something for her district. And then the argument was that they didn't have the votes. We don't have the votes. But the whole strategy of that, which comes from the DSA handbook, was to get those Congress members on record. And then all of those Congress members that voted against giving everybody health care during the pandemic would face a primary challenge. It was that simple. And then I'm sorry, but let's go back to that moment. That wasn't
yeah,
that long ago. And now you see what's happening today. So, what I've been advocating for is for people to really try to find ways to help people within their communities. And the way that we do that at RBN is through mutual aid, right? So, we are trying to get people to build and establish new mutual aid networks in their communities. I host a free mutual aid workshop every month to teach people how to do this. And what people have, and I think more people are starting to see it now with what happened with the SNAP benefits. The government is showing you that they can take away something that you need for your livelihood at any time. And there's just sheer panic.
Yeah, there's sheer panic, but there's not a response. Like, I keep wondering, what's the pain point? Like, look, January 6th wouldn't have bothered me so much if they were actually doing it for an actual good reason. Hey, we don't have our benefits. You're firing us. We're losing our jobs. We are not making ends meet. We are, meaning, if there was an economic rationale for January 6th, God bless. I get it at that point. Instead, you have randos running the Capitol in order to try to reinstall Donald Trump as president in a failed race. Like, you may get Black Lives Matter, meaning, a man gets his neck set on for 9 minutes, ending his life in a horrific way. And you get the population to rise up and protest for like a year, burning down police stations and everything else. But there's never an economic rationale for it. It's just not. I remember going to Martin Luther King Park, or the statue of Martin Luther King in Washington, D.C. during one of the protests. And it's like, you're standing in front of a man that was a socialist, that was pushing for economic benefits and economic well-being of the population itself. And it never comes up in any of the arguments that take place. And there's never a demand that's ever uttered to the government itself. Even when they were wearing the hats and whatnot, when Donald Trump first got elected, again, never a demand, never, this is what we want, in the context of an angry population that has been immiserated. Do you ever see that changing? Because I don't see that changing.
This is why my producer, Eric, started 11 Demands, because this is something he's been talking about for quite some time. He said that these, protests are great. And I participated in protests and covered protests. But if you don't have key demands, what is the message that you're trying to get across? And I look back on some of the protests and I realize, the demands didn't go as far enough. We should be demanding healthcare. We really should. Like, I just don't, we had marches in over 50 cities across the country a couple of years ago for Medicare for all. And again, some people weren't happy about it because it happened when a Democrat was in the White House. Mm-hmm. We were told that. So, because the Democrats in the White House doesn't change the fact that everyone doesn't have healthcare. Right. So it's just, so you only want us to do this when Donald Trump's in the White House? The No Kings rallies, right? Like Donald Trump's, what were the demands?
They were not. We don't want you to be a king. That's the demand that I took from it.
Yeah, there you go. And you mentioned the part that a lot of people don't mention, that MLK was basically a socialist. I think a lot of people obviously still don't know, because that's not taught in history books. It's not taught that when you're in school. So I think a lot of, unfortunately, I think a lot of Americans are propagandized, and that's unfortunate. But I see it, like, just talking to people, like, in person, not like on live streams, but in person, everyday conversations with people. A lot of people don't know what we know. And this is something I'm trying to keep in mind. I can get a little impatient about this sometimes, but I'm trying to teach myself to understand that everyone is not in this space, in this political YouTube space. Everyone doesn't know what we know. Everyone doesn't know about Ukraine and Nazis being in the Azov battalion. In fact, most people I talk to don't. Everyone doesn't know the truth about Venezuela. So I think that's a big part of the problem. Now, I think with Gaza, it's a little bit different because we all saw that happen. We watched a live stream genocide on social media for over 2 years. And there's no ceasefire. People are still being killed in Gaza, right? So we all, the whole world saw that. But what I'm starting to learn is that if it's not on that scale where the whole world sees it, a lot of people are left in the dark. So I think it's on us in independent media to continue to try to educate people, as much as we can. Same thing with Malcolm X. You mentioned MLK, same thing with Malcolm X. A lot of people didn't know some of the things that Malcolm X was trying to tell people about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party,
Right.
and how you have the wolf and the fox. A lot of people don't know. So a lot of people don't know that the Black Panthers did mutual aid.
Yep.
So again, it's unfortunate, but like a lot of it is like if it's not taught, how it's taught in school, and whether it's taught at all.
The thing that annoys me the most, I think, out of all of this is Democrat playbook was effectively let Trump be Trump. Don't do anything. They'll come back to us. And, Mamdani ran a hell of a campaign. Regardless of what he ends up doing, he ran a hell of a campaign. But the other Democrats were rando Democrats. And it was more like Trump sucks. Trump is bad. We're now flooding back to the Democratic Party. In fact, take a look at this. This was CNN, they continuously do these polling things over the course of the year during the time the presidents are in office. Donald Trump's polling, especially on the economy, has plummeted like 33%. And among independents, it is one of the lowest.
Buying, and we can see it pretty simply here. Take a look here. This is consumer sentiment, the current conditions. Consumer sentiment can be the current conditions or it can be future expectations. We're looking at current conditions. And get this, according to the University of Michigan, we are dealing with the worst ever view of current conditions dating all the way back since 1951. This is record-breaking in the way you don't want to be breaking records. And get this, Kate, it is down 30%. Consumer sentiment of current conditions down 30% from January when Donald Trump took office. No bueno.
That's
astonishing. That's astonishing. I don't know what those people thought, right? But I guess my point is, like, if you are a Democrat, and from your point of view, you're seeing, all right, all of these Democrats won in races. Hell, even in like Georgia, they were winning in races that they never won before. You got these Democratic governors that were put in play. Mamdani won by historic numbers. You may be feeling pretty good about yourself and your chances. Then you say, well, Republicans are going to gut healthcare. That's the way it's going to be framed. Republicans are going to gut healthcare. So when bills go up 2 to 3 times, we as Democrats were standing up for this. I can show you Van Jones making that argument. Whereas Republicans were against it, and they were willing to take food out of your baby's mouth in order to raise your healthcare bill. This will be the argument that is effectively being made. And you can imagine that if you're going into the primaries where the public sentiment has plummeted to the lowest ever, Donald Trump's rating has plummeted. Like you can look at the rating as it ticks down. That is going to affect what takes place in the midterms. Meaning, from a Democratic point of view, we don't have to expend energy. We don't have to do anything. We need to show up, and the public will run back to us. That is terrifying to me, and that seems to be what is about to take place. Please tell me there's a different take on this that I'm missing.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be those that are the party loyalists, right? No matter how bad the Democratic Party is or the Republican Party is, they're going to vote for their party. There are those voters. But I think we have to look at the people who are independents, because I think that's what it really comes down to, right? Independents can sway in one way or the other. It was independents that came out for Biden. It was independents that came out for Trump heavily this time around, right? So I think that's what it really comes down to. How do the independent voters feel about what is happening? Those registered, no party affiliation, et cetera. Like, where do they sit on all of this? How does the Arab American community feel? We knew how they felt during the Biden administration, and we knew that a state like Michigan was pivotal for the swing states for Kamala Harris, and she didn't win that state. So what are they going to do next time around? Will they go back over to the Democratic Party? Will they break off and vote third party or independents? Will they stay home? Because when we talk about the presidential election, it basically just comes down to swing states. Hate to say it, but the reality is, if you don't live in those swing states, I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? So it's really more
about the midterms, though. Just for clarity.
For midterms.
Yeah,
for midterms. Yeah, I think a lot of it is that Trump's policies have been awful. Trump's policies are awful. So a lot of people will see it as a vote against Trump. I've already heard people saying it now. I don't care how bad this Democrat candidate is. I don't care. I said this about Abigail Spanberger, the spy.
Yep.
People told me I don't care if she was a spy. The Republicans are terrible and Trump's so bad, so I'm gonna, vote for her. So I think, but then you got to start asking this question. Is it possible that Trump can be a part of this as well, part of this game, that maybe he is being as bad as he wants to be so that people don't leave the two-party system or this uniparty, so to speak? And just maybe Chuck Schumer, and this is what I asked people the other day, is it possible that Chuck Schumer could possibly just be working behind the scenes with Israel to make sure that Donald Trump gets his policies passed? Chuck Schumer said it the other day that the reason why he didn't endorse Zoran Mandami is because he's considered a guardian for Israel.
I think it's worse than that, to be honest. I think my take is more cynical. I think both of them, both political parties, have just acknowledged we don't have to really do anything. That meaning from a Republican side, they look at it as bad as we are going to be, Democrats are going to be ineffectual, which are going to bring them back to us. And Democrats look at it as bad as and ineffectual as we are. They will get pissed off at Republicans and come back to us. Both political parties have internalized this dynamic, the scheme of a two-party system and the way that it operates. And so they function accordingly. So it's not like, hey, we're colluding to play a game in the sense that we have back channel talks about how to make this work. I think it's more just we both understand the rules of this particular system and that we don't really need to pay attention to the larger population. That for all intents and purposes, Nancy Pelosi said it one day. She was like, they'll come back. She said it flat out, they'll come back. And that seems to be what they just know. Even if random Democrat gets taken out, at some point, another random Democrat will come back in because, as you point out, there will be the party loyalists and there will be independents and there will be a new group of voters as kids who grow up who are not aware of the way the political system operates, and they will be drawn to one party or the other, and then they will be disillusioned, and then there will be another group, meaning there's always a generational divide that eventually takes place. I think they just know the scheme. I think it's a scheme, less a game.
Yeah, and it's become more obvious over the years, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look back, like Bill Clinton served 2 terms, George W. Bush 2 terms, Obama 2 terms. It hasn't been two terms since then, Jamal.
Trump 1 term, Biden 1 term.
Yeah, so more people are starting to see like, whoa, what is happening here? But both of those parties exist to protect the status quo. Yes. They're always going to protect and unless we get corporate money out of electoral politics, they're always going to protect the status quo, right? And so that's the struggle I think you face if you believe in reforming the Democratic Party. Now, the win that Mondami had, that was a big win. But one of the things I paid attention to is that they said they knocked on 3 million doors, Jamal. 3 million. And like, you can't win. And this is the thing that I said, I just had a conversation recently with Jill Stein about this as well, was like, Imani Oakley made it very clear when she came on the show, when she ran in New Jersey, the third parties don't have the infrastructure and don't have the money. I just talked to Jill Stein about this and she agreed. Yeah, that's one of the big problems. But until it gets to the point where third parties can go knock on that many doors, that's what I'm saying, 3 million doors. That's where it's going to make a big difference. And so if you don't have the number of volunteers that Zoran had, if you don't have people to knock on that many doors, because with third parties and independents, the problem that they run into is that the media is going to try to blacklist them or block it out so that you don't hear about it. Right. So then you have to get that message across on the ground. So you need the money, you need the infrastructure, you need the resources to do what Zoran did. And right now they don't have that. And so it's just kind of this big, circle. So unless you're running in a third party and you're already like a public figure, if you're a big name or you have a lot of money, then it's going to be different for you. But if you're not, I mean, Zoran wasn't a big name before he ran for mayor. He was the state assemblyman. Mm-hmm. So you see all the work that they had to put in to get to that point. So all of these things, I think people should take into consideration. Imani Oakley also brought up that night that things could have been different. Like Imagine if Eric Adams would have dropped out of the race earlier. Imagine if Curtis Sliwa drops out. Then that race becomes tighter.
Yeah.
So these are all things to look at. But the point is this, is that if we want to get people in these positions that support and advocate for the policies that are going to benefit the working class, you have to overperform. You have to go above and beyond. You have to knock on more doors than the last person just to get the message out. So I think it's one of those things we used to say a couple years ago. We were talking about Bernie, that you have to overwin.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, did you hear the story coming out of, well, Dropsite repeated the story, but it came out of another outlet. It says New York City Councilman Chi Osei is preparing to challenge House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries in the June primary, the New York Times is reporting. A progressive aligned with Mayor Zoran Mandani, Osei, and I may be mispronouncing, but I'll go with it. Osei reportedly is being urged by Mandani to not run, fearing it could jeopardize his push to win establishment backing for his affordability agenda. Osei will be challenging Jeffries, who hasn't faced a serious primary challenger since 2012 to represent parts of Brooklyn that makes gentrifying with working class districts. Osei is best known for social media action in 2024 law shifting broker fees to landlords. The Times says that he plans an insurgent campaign with support from the DSA through his ties with the group, that a recent and his endorsement isn't guaranteed. Now, the issue with this is that apparently he told Mandani no, and Mandani didn't invite him to his electoral bash. So all of those people that you saw in the videos are coming out for the bash. You had Mediasan, you had, I think, what's the guy named Abdullah, I forget his last name. You had all of these people, Rainier, Kalik, I think it's called, her last name is. All of these people there. And the guy who backed him, Chi Osei, not so much. It's like, what the hell?
That's interesting. I can try to reach out to Chi Osei. I actually have another guy who's running against Hakeem Jeffries. Vance Bostic is coming on tonight.
Is he?
So yeah, it's interesting who the press is giving attention to and who they're not giving attention to. So I find that interesting. But
wait, why? I mean, Chi is 27. He's very young.
Yeah.
It's possible that Mamdani was like, look, I don't want you to run because I think you're going to lose. But is that a reason to not run, right? But not inviting him to the party after the fact, it seems a little, I don't know. Like, that's a little caddish, to be honest.
Seems like he might be playing the game.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to warn people about. And I told people I totally get it, because your choices was Chuck Schumer or, Zoran, and we all know Chuck Schumer. I think one of his biggest mistakes, other than his horrible record, was the fact that he didn't really have a plan.
Right.
He didn't have like a list of all. He was just basically, I'm not Zoran, and I'm a Cuomo. So yeah, that could definitely backfire for him. But I think that what I was trying to give people a heads up about is I think he may end up governing a little bit more like a moderate. One of the reasons is because of Governor Hochul. Governor Hochul gets the final say-so on some of these policies that he wants to implement. And she's already said, no, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? So I think that's part of it. And then the other part is, it depends if he wants to continue to have a political career. He may have to find a way to play that game. And so I did forewarn people about that. But I do think that it sounds like to me, he doesn't want Chi to run against Hakeem Jeffries, because he's concerned that that's going to impact his ability to get these policies passed as mayor. Okay. But to not have him at the event, that almost kind of seems like now you don't even want to be associated with this guy, right? Like, you don't even want to be in the same vicinity as him. So that it's all very telling. Hakeem Jeffries does need to be challenged. Hakeem Jeffries has got to go. And I know a quick little story about this I can share with you. Charles Barron was running against Hakeem Jeffries in the first race when Hakeem Jeffries won, right? Mm-hmm. Charles Barron was actually leading in those polls. He was ahead. Hakeem Jeffries was behind Charles Barron. And so the Zionists and, AIPAC and all of them, they got together and decided to get behind Hakeem Jeffries. I actually believe they probably started talking to Hakeem when he was in college. But they put their money behind Hakeem Jeffries. And the next thing you know, David Duke issues an endorsement for Charles Barron. And David Duke, I've been saying this before.
This. Yeah, I remember.
Yes. I think David Duke is just an op that the Democratic Party uses. He's done this time and time again. He did it with Jill Stein. He'll endorse someone that is pro-Palestine to hurt their chances of doing better in the race. So once that endorsement came from David Duke, all of a sudden Charles Barron went down in the polls. Hakeem went above him, and that's how Hakeem Jeffries got that seat in Congress. People need to know that the majority of the people in that district wanted Charles Barron, not Hakeem Jeffries. So they had to go and coordinate a smear attack. I think all of them were behind this. Coordinate a smear attack against Charles Barron so that the Zionist entity can get the candidate in that they want.
It's a damn shame. I remember this. I remember this so much because I remember it was like, okay, that's weird. Why is David Duke coming out of, the carpet, coming from behind the couch, in order to make this endorsement? Like, who got the lights on? And all of a sudden, at that point, Hakeem Jeffries' chances shut up. Also, this was the Cory Booker thing, right? When Cory Booker was talking to all those Zionists, and he was like, hey, you got to get Black people when they're kids, when they're in school and everything else. You have to rear them in order to get them to back the Israeli position in their 20s and so forth. So by the time they're in politics, they're staunchly, on your side. Yeah, you're probably not wrong on this. That's a damn shame. That's a damn shame.
Yeah, they have all of their tricks.
Yeah, but it's like, it sucks, right? Because none of this stuff has anything to do. Look, I have long gotten rid of this idea of schoolboy politics, that these people are working in our interests. This stuff is about power and getting into office and doing whatever it takes to do that. It still sucks. It's just gross. And to back your point up about Hochul, this is her in New York effectively saying, we're not doing that stuff that Mom Donnie is talking about. Are you out of your mind?
So that's all on that. No, I've had conversations about this on this trip.
Effectively, look, we're not taxing the rich. We're not doing the free bus. We're not doing that stuff.
That were important.
By the same token, though, let's be honest, this could backfire. The man got elected with.
I was just going to say, she is up for re-election.
Exactly. And if you have the largest race in regard to the number of people that come out and vote for Mamdani, and you are putting the kibosh on his agenda, is that going to look good for you when you're running that race? I mean, that's assuming there's somebody to her left. I don't think so.
She has two challengers already. Larry Sharpe is running against her. He came on not too long ago to talk about this. And Elise Stefanik is running against Kathy Hochul. She's fully backed by Miriam Adelson and, of course, AIPAC. Like, yes, I don't think Elise Stefanik stands a chance, but she's running against her. Those are the two I know of right now, Elise Stefanik and Larry Sharpe. But no, it's not going to be helpful for Kathy Hochul because she did, unlike Chuck Schumer, she did endorse Zohran Mamdani. So if you didn't agree with, these policies, then why did you endorse him, right? So I think that I don't think that's going to help her come the gubernatorial election, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Sabrina, I always enjoy these conversations, and thank you for joining me this morning. I really do. I know it's early, that I'm dragging people out of bed or late at times. I mean, Jesus, Warwick, it's like 10 o'clock in Australia. But I do appreciate you joining me. Honestly, I do. Sabrina Savadi, she's a Boston-based activist, leftist, and podcaster. She's a member of Revolutionary Blackout Network, a Black-led multicultural network and co-op of everyday people, activists, and allies focused on empowering communities through education, organizing, and direct action. When do your next show come on? 8 o'clock tonight, correct?
7 o'clock tonight, and the gentleman running against Hakeem is going to be on tonight.
Okay. And your show comes on. You don't have you're not Monday through Friday. You're like Monday through Thursday and then Sunday.
Just Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Okay. Sabrina, check her show out, by the way. She does damn good work. I often tell the audience, your ability to run a story, your ability to be coherent in that story, you do fantastic work. So thank you for joining me, and definitely check her out. You be safe, okay?
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. We have come to the end.